Hi everyone, Sydney Grote here with Fiscal Sponsorship Allies, and this video is a ribbon demonstration so that you can look back on exactly how to do and utilize some of the tools that are within the ribbon platform. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Excellent. So just to orient ourselves, just so you know, this is a demo account with all dummy data, so not all of it works the way that yours might, but this is the best we have in terms of demoing the platform. So what I like to do is start out with the operations tab. So in order to orient you to the platform and show you how to use it, we're actually going to go this way through the tabs. So the operations tab, first and foremost, the documents tab is where you're going to find the important documents, namely your fiscal sponsorship agreement for you to download and use or show donors anytime they are curious. And then the budgets and the grants tab, I'm not going to go through in this video, but just know that there are tools native to Ribbon that allow you to track certain lines within your budget, and then also track whatever grant funds are coming in and how you're spending those particular dollars. Because that doesn't apply to everyone, we're going to have a different video on those, but just know that they're available for these purposes. All right, next, the most important thing when you're just starting out is getting donations in. So we're going to start in the Giving tab, and we're going to start with forms. Now, Ribbon enables you to receive donations online via credit card. There are a number of different ways that we'll get to in just a second, but that is the most common way of giving. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start with this initial giving form. The form, as you can see, is kind of the nuts and bolts of how donors can actually donate online. And so again, as you can see, this is a live preview of whatever your donors will see, whether that is embedded onto your own website, or as we'll discuss in a second, there are actually ways to create donation pages through Ribbon as well as a standalone URL if you do not have a website. So here we always recommend all of these fields are editable, and we always recommend giving this form a name, whether it's a website form or donation form. If there's a specific campaign that you're running, you can name it appropriately. We want to make sure that you can identify what form this is actually referring to. This call to action, you can also be very creative with this. So if you are creating this form for, I don't know, a specific event, maybe come out and support so-and-so, or if there is a specific, perhaps it's breast cancer awareness, or perhaps if there was a Giving Tuesday event, this call to action, we really encourage you to be creative. We encourage you to be creative in this call to action, because this is really, again, what your donors are going to see on this form. The colors you can set, of course, here. And then this is where you actually get to dictate which numbers show up. And so if you're running, let's say, a back to school drive and these numbers seem appropriate for supporting that endeavor, perfect, leave them. If you are asking for higher dollar amounts just to cover some expenditures that are a little bit larger, you can tack a 0 onto all of these and have these be your asks. So depending on how you're using this form, you can kind of cater those amounts to whatever you are working with. And then down here, I like to point out that there is, of course, an option to allow for a custom amount. In some cases, that is not preferred, so you can toggle that off. We always encourage displaying cover fees because those are, of course, the credit card fees. And we find that about 70% of donors will opt into those if it is displayed. And then whether or not you want the in honor of mention here as well, you can toggle that. This donation pop-up, just so you know, turns it into a button that when you do click on it, it pops out at you. So that might be fun if you're using your own website. So again, you can toggle that on and off. Any changes that you make on the left will, of course, give you a live preview on the right. When you are comfortable and satisfied with how it looks, the embed code is going to be how you might embed that onto your own website. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and click save, and then it will be ready for utilization in the next piece of this demo. So the next part is going to be the campaign section. And this is what I mentioned a little while ago, where the campaign is actually its own URL. So it's a standalone donation page, so that if you don't have a website or if you'd like to run a specific campaign, these are really good if there's a goal in mind or if it's time bound. Obviously, in this demo account, this one has ended, so you can kind of see how it might look, though. That there's a picture. It does contain your logo and name. All of these words are things that you get to edit. So if you wanted to give some goals, how you can contribute, etc. There are additional options to give like impact measures. And so what that means is, $100 supports or is able to pay for X. And so that really gives a tangible value to donors' dollars. And we do encourage including those as well. And those would show up down here at the bottom. And then I would just point your attention all the way down here. The only time that we are mentioned is here for compliance purposes. So this would be our EIN. That is what makes the donation tax deductible. But that is hard baked into the campaigns. And so you do not need to worry about anything from a compliance perspective when you use these campaigns. Obviously, if this was a live campaign, you would see a donate button, and that donate button would mimic whatever form you've told the campaign to use. So we just covered forms. If you had a specific form for this campaign, you could pop that in, and then it would be unique to this campaign. The reason I love using these tools is because if we slide over into the donations tab, first of all, taking all of this in, there's a dashboard that gives you some unique just data points. This does allow you to see pending donations, including when that estimated available on date is, so you can kind of get a sense of when those funds will be released or clear. But then the thing that I wanted to point out here is that you can filter all of this information by campaign or even just by form. And so if you wanted to see how much your campaign brought in, and see all of the relevant data, you can toggle this date range to whatever you want. Let's just say all time. And then you can export all of this information so that you can run reports or save it and upload it to a CRM if you use one. You can really do a whole lot with these filter tools. And so I like to point that out. And then everything within this table here is clickable. So if I click on this, you will see a side panel here that just shows you the exact method that was used. So this sometimes will say check if a donor has given via check. And then it will also capture those that form and campaign as well. We are really proud to be able to share all of the fees. So any fees associated with this particular donation, including that net amount that you actually have available for your program use, is available again at a transaction by transaction level basis. And then finally, this view receipt button is going to, that is the donation receipt. So if Liam emails you and just says, hey, I seem to have lost my receipt, or whatever the case may be, you actually, as the sponsee, can download that directly and then send it to Liam. And that way it allows for some positive donor interaction on your part. This new donation button, you are actually able to send a donation request directly to a donor. This should not be utilized as like an initial reach out. This really is a tool that's intended to be for, you've already had a conversation with a donor. They have specifically pledged an amount to the organization or in support of the organization. And so you can select them if they exist in the system or add them directly from here. Either way, you're going to have to enter the amount that you're asking them to give. And so that's why this is not good for an initial reach out. You want to be confident in that amount, and you want to make sure that when they receive this email, it's not a surprise. And so what you would do is you would just select the donor, you would enter that donation amount, and then you would send the donation request. In this case, then, say $1,000. In this case, Todd would be receiving an email as soon as you send that donation request, asking for $1,000 and giving him the ability to check out in a unique way. And so it's a little bit more of a personalized ask rather than just sending them to the website or to the form. And so this can be good, especially if you've cultivated a relationship with donors. If we move over to the donors tab, so the donations tab is much more transactional level. The donors tab is going to be a little bit more higher level where each donor has their own profile. The system does capture first and last name, but if there is an organization that receives credit for that donation, the first and last name is simply the contact person. And then there's the organization that's captured as well. The total donation here is going to be just that, the total amount that they've given over the lifetime of that donor relationship. And then the system also does track if someone is a recurring monthly donor. So that will just be yes right here if that were to be the case. You can filter by year. So if you wanted to monitor year over year what your donor base looks like, you can do that. And then this information is shared between FSA and you. So you can export this information at any time. Just like I mentioned under the donations tab, all of this data is interactable. And so what I mean by that is if I click on Sophia, it will actually bring you to Sophia's donor profile. So again, it will show you that total donated, but then it will also give you the history of, and you can filter however you'd like. It will give you the history of all of Sophia's donations. And again, whether it came in via a campaign or otherwise. And then from here, once again, you can open up that side panel and see the transaction level details. So this is all really helpful as you engage with donors and monitor your fundraising efforts to get a sense of what's working, what's not, who do I need to interact with, that type of thing. Okay, now we can move on to banking. This section of the demo is really intended to show you how to, so you've gotten all the donations in, that's great. Now you have a balance and you'd like to know how to use it, right, to run your charitable program. So the first step is getting the donations in. Here's the second step. If you go to banking and overview, this is a view that gives you your full account activity. Some people are going to spend a lot of time at this view and some people aren't. It's totally your preference. But if you scroll down, this account activity is really just a general ledger-esque. So it shows you ins and outs across the entire account, and then it will give you that running balance here on the side. You can filter that to whatever you want, including a custom date range. And then you can, filter by any of these as well. The filter tool is also great to show you, maybe you just want to see donations. Well, wonderful. You can click that and then export it. So these filter tools are great, and we'll come back to that in just a second after I talk about, again, the ways to actually spend this money out. So there are 3 ways to spend money out of Ribbon. The first is via cards. So let me click on that. Ribbon offers virtual or physical Visa branded debit cards, and these directly access the funds within your Ribbon account. These are debit, not credit cards, so they can only access whatever is available within Ribbon. And as I mentioned, the options are virtual or physical. Physical cards are a physical piece of plastic that gets sent to you, but they do take 5 to 8 business days to ship. So if you are in more immediate need of spending those funds, I do recommend having a virtual card. And that virtual card can be added to a digital wallet or, used in like a pay to tap with your phone, whatever the case may be. These cards are assigned 2 users. So it's really important that whoever you would like to have a card within your organization, that they actually are signed up to be a user in Ribbon. And there are card-only users, and that is an option through here. So if you have, let's say, a volunteer that you've authorized to go make some purchases, perhaps they're buying some groceries for a homeless shelter or a food drive that you're doing. Well, you want them to be able to spend money directly out of Ribbon, but you don't necessarily want them to be able to see all of the financials or the donor information, that type of thing. You actually can add them as a card only user, and the only access they have to Ribbon is for the cards. So if you wanted to do that or create a card at all, you can create new card. Here is where you would add a card only user. Otherwise, you will pick a team member that is already, logged in and added to Ribbon. And then here's where you can give some security limits. Now, obviously, financial security is really important for you as an organization. And so these limits are not intended to be oppressive by any means. It really is meant to be a security factor for you. So if you, like I said, like I alluded to with that volunteer, if you only wanted them to be able to spend, let's just say $300 at any given time, you can actually adjust their limits here. If you do not set any limits at all, there are some global limits for being part of our program. So there is a $2,000 daily and $500 per transaction limit. And if there's ever an issue with that, please do reach out to us and we can have a conversation. Here are the budget and grants tools that I alluded to earlier. Again, this video is not going to get into that, but if there was a particular budget line item that this was appropriate to assign to the card, you can assign that here. But again, I won't get into that too much more. Once those cards are created, you will be able to, again, see them all here. If there's ever an issue with them, you have the ability to freeze it if it's lost or something like that. The billing address is assigned by user. So if you ever are, wanting to ensure that you're using the correct billing address, it is right here. And then for virtual cards specifically, you can view the card details. Obviously, this is a dummy card, so this will not actually spend money, but the card details can be accessed through that icon, and it will show you that security code as well as the card number. When you use the card, as you'll see down here, it will keep track of all of the transactions that are purchased using this card. When you use the card, you or the assigned user will get a text or email, depending on your communication preferences, to say, great, we noticed that you were using your card. Congratulations. Please upload your receipt so that we have record of that purchase and why it was charitable. So you can do that right there. You can snap a picture of the receipt with your phone and just give a little explanation of what the purchase was for, and again, how it furthered your charitable purpose. But let's say you're out and about doing purchasing a number of different things, and you don't want to do it while you're in the car. Well, no problem at all. If you are going to just upload all your receipts at a later date, what you'll do is you'll go banking and then overview. And then I told you we'd come back to this. One of the filters is actually expenses missing receipts. Now, because this is a demo account, it is perfect and there is no data available. So I'm actually going to just filter by expenses. What you want is for that expenses missing receipts to be 0. You don't want any outstanding. So let me just click on one of these. Obviously this view, let's just pretend that this said expenses missing receipts. What you'd want to do is you'd want to click on this, explain what this was for. This is a demo account, so of course this is not sufficient. I don't know what that means, and neither would our staff people. So we want to know why you purchased something for this amount at this merchant, and how it furthered your charitable purpose. And then you would upload the receipt here, click upload, and then all of it is auto-saved, so there's no need to save it. When that's done, it will get removed out of that expenses missing receipts filter view and then just go into this expenses view. So that would be how you would go back and retroactively upload your receipts. So that's an overview of the cards. The one other thing I wanted to mention is that the system is designed that if there are 5 outstanding receipts, you have a grace period of 72 hours, that's 3 days. And then that card will be frozen, and any subsequent cards associated with that user will also be frozen. So this is a compliance aspect of fiscal sponsorship of our program that is really important to keep up with. So I just like to make people aware up front that, if there are 5 outstanding receipts for longer than 72 hours, the account will be frozen. All right, so that's an overview of the cards. The second way to spend money out of Ribbon is going to be our second most common. That is going to be the bill pay module. The bill pay module is appropriate to pay vendors, contractors, anybody that's sent you an invoice that you don't want to pay or it doesn't make sense to pay with a debit card. So what you would do if you have a brand new vendor, you would simply add them here. This is pretty self-explanatory. The system does keep track. If you require or if you are required to send them a 1099, the system will keep track of that for you. So you can toggle that on or off. But it will ask you for details about this vendor. So just upload that. The W-9 is optional, but again, if it's appropriate for you to track that, please make sure that you do so and then click save. Obviously, the demo account has a number of vendors, so we'll just use one of those. If you go back to bill, creating a new bill is, again, pretty self-explanatory. You select the vendor from the list. You enter the invoice details depending on how you've been billed. If this is a recurring payment, maybe you don't have an invoice, but we want to know we want to see a justification for the amount that you enter. So let's say that you are paying this particular vendor $250. You would enter that amount, give it an explanation of why, again, this is necessary and charitable. Those are really the 2 key words that we want to be answered within this explanation. And then upload whatever documentation you have. Again, if it's a formal invoice or just justification of that number, and the explanation is what we're looking for. The invoice number, of course, if there's a formal invoice number, enter that. Otherwise, this is a required field. So, you can just make up a numbering convention if again, it's not a formal invoice. And then select the due date. You can come down here, and again, I'm glossing over these, but this is a good place to say, to assign a budget code or to say, okay, this foundation grant is going to pay for this particular purchase. So that is how you can kind of use those tags while you're entering this bill. And then you're going to send for approval and payment. What happens at that point is whoever your fiscal sponsorship representative is, they will get an email saying that your organization is attempting to pay an invoice and that it's ready for review. This is part of a 2-touch system, which is best practice for financial safety and security within the nonprofit space. And so this is building good habits for you. So this is part of our 2-touch financial system. So whoever your representative is, will, dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure all of this looks good from a compliance aspect. And then they will actually hit submit. When they hit submit, this vendor is going to receive an email that says, Fiscal Sponsorship Allies is attempting to pay this invoice number on behalf of your organization. Please enter your direct deposit information in order to be paid. And so Ben, Herman, and Collins, or whoever the vendor is, would enter their own direct deposit information in a secure fashion so that you never have to collect that information, save it, etc. Once that's done the first time, any subsequent payments to this vendor will go to the same bank account. So it's not a hassle every time. And there is the option to update that bank account if for whatever reason they change banks or need to update that as well. So no worries there. So that's bill pays. When the bill pays are approved, you will be able to see that they are approved. If they are rejected, Usually there is a rejection note that is here. So as you can see, help to achieve our mission is not a good enough explanation because there's not details regarding that particular purchase. So there may be rejection notes, but nevertheless, you can always resubmit bills for, you know, additional approval. And then if you do see, so again, dummy data, demo account, this is not an adequate explanation, but there will also be approval notes anytime a bill pay is approved. And you can monitor that status here. So sometimes it will say in process or paid. So if a vendor is reaching out to ask you about it, you can view the status of that here. So that is bill pays. The third and final way to spend money out of Ribbon is the reimbursement option, and it is almost identical to the bill pays, so this will go pretty quickly. Reimbursements are really intended for anybody who is on your team within Ribbon if they have covered expenses for the organization personally and need reimbursement. This is different than a bill pay because those are really intended to pay vendors in a more formal way. Reimbursements is just like, okay, I went to the grocery store and bought a bunch of water for the youth event. It was easier to put on my personal card when I was shopping for personal groceries, and so I'd like to be reimbursed. So you can click on that new reimbursement button. Like I said, these recipients do have to be enrolled in Ribbon as a user. So keep that in mind before you instruct folks to use their personal cards. And then similar to a bill pay, we just want to know the amount. The explanation is still important, and that receipt, that original receipt, to verify that amount. In the example that I just gave, if I purchased water as part of my personal grocery shopping, the receipt, if you could circle the expense that you're asking for reimbursement, that does help our team do the compliance check a little bit faster and does, lower the risk of getting this rejected. Once again, as always, you can use the accounting tools here to assign a budget code or grant code to the expense. And then also these get sent for approval and payment, just like bill pays. And so once again, just like with a bill pay, your fiscal sponsorship representative would receive an email to be able to look through the document or the documents, the details that you've provided, and then they will sign off on that. And then the recipient will receive that email asking for their direct deposit information. And then once again, it will be an ACH to their bank account. Bill pays and reimbursements, those ACHs take about 3 to 5 business days to complete. So do keep that timing in mind with due dates and things of that nature. So all 3 of those ways, cards, bill pays, and reimbursements, are how to spend the money out of Ribbon. There are also reports that I wanted to draw your attention to. So if we look at spend report first, this is a very dynamic way to see all of your expenditures and how your organization is spending money. So you can filter by quarter or whichever months you want, by year, and see the total amount broken down by different categories. And then all of the transactions that are associated with all of those filter options is down here for you to export or be able to export. This filter option is great. So if there were, you wanted to use that budget code and say, well, I just want to see program A related expenditures, you can do that. And the spend report, like I said, is dynamic and will respond appropriately. And then finally, there are statements for the account overall. So these are just like bank statements. They will be month over month. They will show you the transactions in and then transactions out and show the beginning and ending balance for the month. And so those can be useful for you as well. Which then just brings us back to the home page where you can see that there are a number of different tiles that hopefully make a little bit more sense now. The balance is always 100% available for you to use. What I mean by that is that there are no fees or anything that have to come out of this balance. That is 100% available for you to use. The money in tile is going to be all of the gross receipts in. And so anytime you receive donations, this is going to tally up the total amount, but it's going to be the gross amount. What this tile does not take into account are the fiscal sponsorship fees that are taken out of the donation and or the credit card processing fees. So if someone gives $100 donation, just for example, the money in tile would show $100, but then the balance would be a little bit less than that just because there are credit card fees and the fiscal sponsorship fee that's taken out. So that's kind of the difference between those two tiles. And then the money out is relatively straightforward. It is just all of your expenditures out that you have spent. There are some quick links over here if you prefer that. And then this is just a glance at recent activity. These are donations in and these are expenditures out. So that really concludes my demo of Ribbon. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did have any further questions, our fiscal sponsorship team is here to help. So please just reach out to your representative at any time if you needed more instruction, and they would be happy to help. Thanks so much.